Hello guys and welcome to this week's Remote Monday theory lesson. Today we're going to be looking at Roland Barthes' Semiotics. So this is something we looked at a little bit in the week. I think you've looked at in class, but we're going to be doing a deeper dive today. This is the third theorist that we've looked at. So going back, the first week we looked at Steve Neal, genre theory, do you remember that? Then Stuart Hall's reception theory last week. And this week it's Roland Barthes' Semiotics. Now it's important to try and remember these guys and get an idea of what they're talking about, because when we come to do the exam and write any sort of essays, you will need to refer to these guys in quite a lot of detail. So when do we use semiotics? Well, it's a very useful tool. We actually use it pretty much all the time in daily life. Literally, when you're looking, I mean, it's sort of a human condition, almost unconsciously doing it all the time. So when you look at anything, when you look at the way someone's dressed, when you look at posters on the wall in the classroom or articles in magazines, you look at anything, it will bring other things to mind. In media studies, where do we use it? Whenever we analyse any media product. So whether that be a moving image piece of video, whether it be a print image, or even just a piece of sound like a radio show, it's a vital tool for analysis and for creating media products and meaning. So whenever you make anything, you have to consider all the meanings that could be within the products you're making. So semiotics is the study of signs. Everything is a sign and everything can be analysed on two levels. What is actually there and what is suggested. So they're the two different levels. What's really there, a technical description of what's there, and what is suggested. So what is actually there? This means what is literally there, or the common sense meaning of an image. This could involve describing things very accurately, referring to media language and specific terminology. For example, shot types, low angle mid shot, or something like, the camera pans slowly to the left. Something like that. Cough, sorry. This is known as the signifier, or the denotation, or the denotative level. So if we're asking what is denotation of that image, it's literally what is there. It's an accurate and technically specific description of what is there. So learning the proper media language, the terms, types of different shots, things like that, that is very important for getting this, the denotation level right. So what is here? If we look at this image of the skull on the right, don't be scared. What is actually there? Can you describe it accurately and in detail? And can you use media-specific language? Well, this is a bit of a kind of a dry image. This is something I've just pulled off the internet. But I mean, how would we describe that? Well, it's an image of a human skull, obviously. Is it a drawing? I think it's probably a drawing, a pencil drawing. It certainly doesn't look like a photograph. It's black and white. It's a what would be, if it was a full body, a medium close-up. Well, actually, it's more like a close-up, isn't it? It's like a close-up of just the head. So that's the distance that we're at, and it's on a white background. So that's sort of the technical description of what is actually there. What is being suggested? Everything that is brought to mind when you look at a sign is called the signified, or the connotation, or the cognitive level. Cognitive level. When a sign is used, it's important to consider all the potential meanings and how it might be working on a cognitive level. Understanding both levels of a sign leads to a full analysis. So being able to understand possibly all the different meanings that could come to mind when looking at a sign, and when we say sign we mean literally anything, that is how you do a full analysis. So let's have another look at the skull again. What are the connotations here? So what comes to mind, what is signified, what is evoked, what is connoted? They're all sort of different ways of saying the same thing. So those three last words, signified, evoked, connoted, they're the ones that you should try and use when writing essays in place of the word suggested. So a lot of this media is learning how to speak kind of specifically and use fancy words. They're three words that you should start using now. Maybe you want to just pause this for a second and think, write a list of things that might be connoted or evoked or signified when you look at that skull. What comes to mind? Well, if you paused and wrote some stuff down, I'm going to carry on now and sort of say some of the things that you might have said. So it's kind of maybe it's science. You might look at that and think science, biology, human biology. You might think horror, something scary, ghosty, something like that. All these sort of images might come to mind. Death. Disease might come to mind, anything like that. I look at that and it kind of reminds me of the opening of Terminator 1. This is incredibly important when analysing media products and when producing media products. So yeah, you really need to consider the signifiers that could be triggered when you use any kind of product at all, when you construct shots, when you construct video or prints or anything like that. Every part could be signifying something to the viewer. So that could be the colours used, it could be the fonts used, it could be the type of shot used, the costumes used. It's not just as simple as saying to an actor, "Oh, just turn up in the clothes you're wearing." How do the clothes signify something about their character? Everything is used to tell the story, to give meaning to the audience. So it's very important to understand this level of semiotics and how it's used. Everything is used for a reason. This probably is going to just say exactly what I said now. Everything is used for a reason. Everything signifies something. While it is impossible to guess every connotation the audience might have to a sign, because people have different backgrounds, people have different histories and different cultural knowledges, it is important to consider as many as possible. We do, however, share a lot of cultural knowledge, and we have what's called a sort of shared cultural map. So often things will signify the same things to large groups of the audience. Consider every detail: colour, types of shot, props, costumes, locations, performance, text, images. Everything has a potential to hold meaning. Let's look at an example. Okay, so we're going to look at Captain Marvel here, the poster for Captain Marvel. Now, this actually came up in an exam a few years ago, and it might come up in some of our mock exams. It's a good text to look at. There's a lot of stuff we can talk about here, and when we come on to looking at things like feminism, this is a good text to look at. That's just me having a sip of tea now. One second. Lovely stuff. Right, so we're going to talk about Captain Marvel. We're not going to do a deep analysis of this, but we do a sort of a cursory semiotic analysis, talk about some of the connotations that we see when looking at this image. The first thing I'm going to talk about is colour. There's obviously a strong use of blue and red. So this signifies, I would say, sort of patriotic colours. It's like almost the American colours, red, white and blue. It's very similar to Captain America's colours. It's a very bright kind of colourful picture, so it sort of suggests a sort of playfulness to the image. It doesn't look like a horror film, does it? It looks like a kind of high concept action film for kids. Blue could signify cold or purity. Red could signify heat or violence or evil. So we've got this sort of divide. Half of the background is red, half of it's blue. So it looks like there's a sort of struggle there, a sort of battle going on. Later on, we're going to talk about this thing called binary oppositions, which is in most texts, so in most films, books, narratives, there tends to be conflict created through opposition. So you could say that there's an opposition going on between the blue team and the red team. There could be a suggestion of battles or rival sides. Okay, so let's look at her pose. So what is the pose? Well, it's a typical hero stance, and I guess the denotation there, the kind of specific type of shot, is a low angle mid shot. So we're looking up at the character. Now, why do we do that? What are the connotations of a shot like that? Well, it makes them look tough, it makes them look strong, it looks like we're looking up to them. Her positioning is very sort of heroic, looking off into the distance, wind in her hair, ready for action. Captain Marvel is central in the image. She is the protagonist. So she's the person we're following, she's the star. And she's possibly caught in the middle of a battle, because she seems right in the middle of the blue half and the red half. Also, her costume is red and blue, a mix of the two, so it could suggest some sort of conflict that she's caught in the middle of. It's high key lighting on her, so she's lit up. There's no big shadows on her, so it kind of looks like a high budget film. Action is connoted through the wind in her hair and the clenched fists. Looks like she's ready for action, ready to fight. So there's a sort of sense of action or violence or fighting in her stance. She's faced fully forward, so there's a little mode of address where she's not looking directly at the audience. She's not looking into the camera. She's looking off into the distance, wistfully, like ready for battle. But her face is in full profile. We can see her face clearly. She is the star. She's being used to market the film. Now, this isn't the same for all posters. I looked at a couple of Batman posters, and Batman, wears his mask in all the posters. The star of Christian Bale is less important, I would say, than the star of Batman. And what's her name? I've forgotten her blooming name now. That actress, Brie Larson. Brie Larson. She wasn't a huge star, but she might be more well known to the majority of the audience than Captain Marvel the character. Captain Marvel the character was a lesser known comic book character, not obviously to the comic book fans, but to the general audience. Also, they want to raise her star profile, so her face is fully in view. Also, she doesn't wear a mask. It's as simple as that. So, costume. Let's talk a little bit more about the costume. Captain Marvel is dressed in a typical superhero costume. It signifies honour and bravery. Yeah, I mean, if you just saw her in the costume, you would suggest, what would it suggest? It would suggest probably superhero, but also sort of a sci-fi, science fiction sort of futuristic look to it. If she wasn't a superhero, she could be on something like some weird version of Star Trek or something like that. So it kind of looks futuristic. I guess the star that she's got, the Marvel symbol, the star that's sort of repeated in the background, is very typical of the genre of the superhero, where we have the symbol in the middle, like Superman, like Spider-Man, like Batman. They all have the logo in the middle of their chest. So it does sort of signify, her costume does signify the genre. There are similarities to other characters, so particularly Captain America and Superman. Captain America and Superman are kind of similar characters in some respects. The big blue Boy Scout, and Captain Marvel in some respects was replacing Captain America in the MCU as the sort of new leader of the Avengers. So the bright colours and costumes signify the type of genre to the audience, and attracts the target audience. So it doesn't look sort of broody and kind of glum like the new Batman film does. It looks bright and kind of fun. The lightning, though this isn't really part of the costume, the lightning special effects around her arm suggest power, action, and again the sort of science fiction genre. Okay, so mise en scène. Sci-fi is further conveyed through the use of spaceships in the background. They fly in opposite directions, which again could evoke a sense of opposition. So again, if they were flying in the same direction, it might seem like they're on the same team, but if you look, they are going off in separate directions. So again, there seems to be a sort of conflict there. The background is largely space, which could suggest the location of the majority of the film could be set in space. The planet in the background on the left, on the blue side, could be Earth, possibly. This could connote a sense that Earth are the good guys in the film. So as blue is a sort of cooler colour, it doesn't quite look as violent as the red, it could suggest that Earth is on the side of good, or they're sort of represented as good in this film. That's not always the case. If you watch Avatar, Earth are sort of the bad guys there. They go to Pandora and they invade it, and what are the characters? The Na'vi. The Na'vi are the people who live on Pandora. They're the big blue people. They are very much the sort of good guys, and Earth are sort of the bad pillagers who go there and take all their stuff. So through semiotic analysis, we have connotations of the genre, sci-fi, superhero genre. The narrative, there is some conflict between two teams. Possibly one of the teams is Earth, possibly one of the teams is Alien, and we've got Captain Marvel stuck between the two. And we have this ideology, good versus evil, heroism. That is the sort of ideologies that are evoked within this. So to reiterate, a sign is both what is actually there, the signifier, the denotation or the denoted, and the media-specific language used to describe that. Also, it's what's suggested, the signified, the connotation or the connoted, and what is evoked. Also, when you describe stuff, you should say, very much coming under that, what is suggested, you should say why the producers have wanted to suggest that to you, why the producers wanting you to respond in that way. So this week's task, I've attached a Word document. It was just above where you found this PowerPoint in Teams. That'll give you specific tasks for your year group. as the first year and second year are doing slightly different tasks. So yeah, if you could just refer to that worksheet. Please upload to the submissions folder in the same area where you found this PowerPoint and the work by the end of the day to be registered for the class. So yeah, if you can, you should see a folder exactly where you found this work. It should say submissions, and just every week there'll be a folder right next to that week's work. It's specific to your class, and when you drop the work in there, it registers you. So it's better than if you email me or you send me the work in any other way, because otherwise it's very hard for me to track it. So if you just drag it into that folder, uh, ideally you would do the work and watch this video in the hour specific for your lesson, but you don't have to, as long as I get it at some point on the Monday, and I will register you Tuesday morning. Okay, any problems with any of that, just see me, and I can show you in class. Thanks a lot for watching, and see you this week in class.